Welcome to Boxcars Season 2, Episode 3. This time, me and my co-host Ryan will revisit the Necron matchup, and if we have enough time, we'll talk a bit about the changes in the Forge World book that is upcoming. So, hello Ryan.
Hello Marcin, how's it going?
Yes, it's fine. In this Nurgle-infested time, we are
zombie infested time.
Yeah,
Necrons
exactly.
and Nurgle.
Exactly. Yeah, in this, just as a first step before we dive into the Necrons, I wanted to mention that there is a video of you playing. That was a Steel City event. What was the name exactly? Steel City Legion.
Steel City Legion. I want to say Steel City Showdown was the name of the event.
Okay. And I saw your game there versus Nurgle, and I have to say, I have to compliment your behavior at the beginning when you fired everything at the Nurgle forces, and he saved 90% of 4-ups.
He did, yeah.
And you just that happened and just went on with without losing any, without tripping, etc. So I have to say that's a thing to admire.
Keep
your cool under the stress, because I think inside you were a bit disturbed with that situation. I guess.
I mean, once I kind of got down to the last, it kind of got to that point of just like, can I get a break here? He rolled really hot that game. He rolled double sixes twice on his flamers. I mean, he was rolling high on his charges. He was rolling hot that game.
Yeah, and still, I was watching that game and I was thinking you are still making pretty good effort and keeping your pace a step behind him because of those. The round where he saved so many 4-ups, that was a really that step loss, right? It cost you probably a bit.
Oh, I think it cost me the game.
Yeah.
That wasn't the only thing I could have done to mitigate that, but I did make the calculation. Statistically, I should be able to, with my army, I should have been able to kill 3 Plague Burst Crawlers, 3 Mephitic Blight Haulers, and a Demon Prince with the majority of my army in play like that. I should have won that shooting fight, and then I should have been able to finish the job with the Virtus Praetors within 2 or 3 turns. And I think if he would have rolled about average, I think that would have been the result. But sometimes you don't roll average. It can work either way. So
that's correct.
Yeah.
And one other thing, if our listeners want to watch that game, that they keep looking at your spending CPs, because you are very cagey with your CPs, and I think you calculate on the fly, is it worth a CP to spend here and there, because we have so many defensive buffs. When I usually spend all the CPs within 2 turns, no matter how many I have, and you manage to keep turn 3, turn 4, you still have a few for key moments, right?
Yeah, I mean, I was really trying to save 3 for Stooping Dive at some point, but he did a really good job of being aggressive with his Plague Burst Crawlers, which is something that took me off guard as well. When he initially moved up on the objectives, I didn't expect him to be so aggressive with those Plague Burst Crawlers and charging my Virtus Praetors, keeping them in combat, preventing them from getting the charge. He did a really good job at that. And that's a good way to use vehicles now, because they can shoot into combat. So I'll be thinking about that as far as tactics for my Caladius Grav tanks as well. Pushing the Caladius Grav tank onto an objective for charging units, prevent it from shooting other things. Are really tactics I haven't explored too much, just because I haven't had the need to. But that kind of opened my eyes to some things. I think overall, if I would have played to that other flank and decided to kill the greater demon and said, I just need to kill that guy or he's going to be around the whole time. And then, kind of played to that other flank and just kind of held that other side instead of kind of trying to punch straight into his strong side. I think the game would have went differently, even if he had rolled that good.
Yeah.
I think that would have changed things. So I kind of played aggressively. I played into his strengths, and it was a situation where yes, I risked him rolling good, and he rolled good, and that's that. That happens sometimes.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, that's a partly dice game, not only strategic game, especially
Right.
when you play such a light force and you cannot count on throwing 120 dice a turn, then the statistics will finally hit at some point. If you only have 20 or something close to 30 maybe shots, then the statistic might fail you there.
Yeah. I really, I think that could have been better done, and I think I just underestimated the guy a little bit. Like I said, he kind of took me off guard in a couple of key ways, and it turned out to be a great game. I think I lost by 10 points.
Yeah,
9 points actually. It was like 82 to 91.
Yeah, so, it was very. I was really surprised, and you managed to score the secondaries greatly, and at the end also the primary as well. So that was a very good game.
Yeah, it was almost a table. He had his Greater Demon guy, and then some Nurglings left, and that was pretty much it. So some things that I took away from that, I am thinking about deep striking Virtus Praetors into the backfield. Sagittarum might be the way to go if I want to keep that troop choice, and then deep striking Virtus Praetors into the backfield for those line breaker points. Just because I think one of the reasons why I've struggled in that line breaker is that with infantry, they just struggle to get in range to use their guns, and they struggle to the Pyrothites at times. They struggle to get in range to use their guns effectively, and there's just some really bad matchups for their screening. And I think at least with Sagittarum, especially with now them going up to flat 2 damage, they do present a cheaper and probably more efficient alpha strike, because they can do flat 3 damage with the undergun. They can shoot, 3 shots each, hitting on 2s, re-rolling.
So you would think to put the Sagittarium on your side, holding objective and maybe advancing forward, and
so
those shots in, and if they die, it doesn't cost you that much, and Virtus Praetors would drop behind and shoot things, right?
Yeah, so the Sagittarum, they give me some more options in that regard, because if I do deploy them in my deployment zone, they're not really out of play. They can shoot at 36 inches, so they'll have something to contribute. But I can't say the same about the Pyrothite Spears. They're going to be, if they end up sitting on a backfield objective while everything else is pushing up or helping to kind of guard the Caladius tanks with maybe the Tanglefoot grenades, now that the tanks have lost their neg-2. Their grab charge, and neg-2 to charge for the grab rule. It might make more sense to have that infantry kind of guarding with the tanks and kind of contributing some of their firepower. In that way. But then obviously, I got a little more leeway in the matchup then, because if I look at his army and go, okay, he's going to screen with these units, I don't really need to go after Virtus Praetors, or I don't have to send my Virtus Praetors in for that, because this will be sufficient, or I need to, because he's screening so well, I need to use a smaller unit in the reserve to get them into behind enemy lines, or line breaker. So it'll give me a little bit more play, a little bit more of an option, and they do present a little bit more of a threat than at being able to shoot 9 shots that are all doing flat 2 damage at 36-inch range, strength 5 neg-1. Is not bad, and then 3 shots with the underguns at strength 5 neg-3. They still threaten characters really well. So that was half of the Pyrothite, so they won't threaten tanks as much, but even rolling 5s, they can still chip off 5 or 6 damage, hit wounded on 5s even. with some lighter vehicles, as long as it's not toughness 8. And the Pyrothites, they can, just like anything else, they can go south. They can swing south, and you roll a 1 and a 1 and a 2 on your damage rolls, or you roll that to wound, and like they don't do anything. At least with the Sagittarium, they won't really ever be left behind. They'll have the capacity to fire at objective holding units. They'll have the capacity to kind of be a counterpunch. It's like Inceptors, so if someone deep strikes Inceptors, I can kind of hold that unit back and wait until the Inceptors drop, and then I can, kind of counterpunch with them against units like that, Inceptors, or, there's some AdMech deep strikers that, Sephirim. There's a bunch of units that I think would be more useful to counterpunch with a Sagittarium unit than the Pyrothites. So that's one of the things that I'm thinking, or have been thinking.
I think the Sagittarium Custodians are the kind of winners of the new Forge Workbook.
Yeah, they definitely.
There, and maybe the small dreadnoughts. I haven't tried them out yet, but they also look very interesting.
I think the Achilles by 4 actually. I think there was a lot of good buffs, but I think the Achilles actually came out on top over everything. The fact that he no longer degrades is huge.
Yeah.
So great. The fact that he has innate -1 damage, so good.
And also,
he got a 6-up feel no pain.
Incredible amount of firepower for a small dreadnought, right?
Oh yeah, and now that so
rapid fire 2 on 2 hands, and then the dread spear also heavy 2. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's flat 3 damage now. Rather, it was D3 damage before. Now it's flat 3 damage. So that was a huge buff. So the fact that he doesn't degrade, now he's innate -1 damage, no CP spent. His spear is not just in shooting better, because it's now a flat 3 damage as opposed to D3 damage. He also gets an extra attack, and his attack is now 3 plus D3 damage. So it's a min 4 damage rather than a minimum of 3 damage. And that was, at least 50% of the time, because it was you roll a D6, right? You roll a 1 or a 2 or a 3, it's a 3, but now it's a min 3 damage. So that, +1. So it's never going to be less than 4 damage. And 33% of the time, you're going to be doing 5 and 6 damage rather than just, you're going to be doing 4 to 6 damage, most of the time, compared to 3 damage most of the time. Which is a huge buff. And like I said, then the fact that he doesn't degrade is huge. I mean, I played a double Achilles list for a good while, probably 5 or 6 tournaments. I played a double, maybe more than that. Double Achilles list. I love the Achilles Dreadnought. I am not sad that he lost D3 damage on a 4+, D3 mortal wounds on a 4+. Like people were like, "Oh no!" I was like, "That is not a loss compared to what he gained." I mean, he gained that back substantially. I mean, look just in his attacks alone. Just getting 1 additional attack is better than D3 mortal wounds, in my opinion.
So
5 base attacks now.
Tell me, you played 2 Achilles in your list. How would you play them? So put 1 into teleport chamber, or
I usually put 2 in, actually.
Okay, 2 for 3 CP. Yeah. So you drop both, teleporting them in.
Yeah, they were and are even more.
And both penitent, so they reroll charges.
Well, I did this in 8th more, but okay. I did use a list where I did use an Eternal Penitent, but it's just so much. They're just so much better now. And yeah, Eternal Penitent, definitely the way to go. Being able to reroll charges plus, so they got 6 attacks, rerolling charges. I mean, there's strength 14. They move 9 inches. They do good output. The Adrathic Destructor got cheaper, so that was one of the things. I usually took at least 1 Adrathic Destructor, and then they took a big points hike. Right at the beginning of 9th, when they came out with that first FAQ or that first errata. So I was like, I can't really afford to pay 190 points for the Adrathic.
Now they actually dropped in points, right? They are 160 now. So
now they're 180 with the Adrathic. So the Adrathic are 10 points each rather than 15 points.
With Adrathic,
It puts it absolutely in range. If you compare what you get with an Achilles now, like a bike captain, I would say the Achilles, you're probably better off going with an Achilles if you're looking at adding a combat unit. Obviously the bike captain gets character protection, but a lot of people run, bike captains without character protection anyways.
Yeah.
They try to run them just straight down, straight at the enemy. To me, the Achilles is a better option. You're going to get more attacks. You're strength 14. You do way better damage. You give them a draft of destructors and the Achilles Dread Spear. That's all shooting at 18 inches, to 24 inches. With the Achilles, I mean, to me, he was the one who walked away with the biggest.
So you would actually equip him with Adeptus Destructors on both hands, yeah.
Especially now, with all the gratis armor stuff out there, he gets 2 shots per gun. It's 4 shots. He's hitting on 2s. You can pay a CP to give him innate rerolls of 1 if you don't deep strike a captain with them too, like an Alaris.
Mm-hmm.
So that's now he's getting 6 shots that are wounding, on 4s and 3s. And doing flat 3 damage, So, I mean, 2 of these guys dropping next to a unit of Eradicators, both with Eternal Penitent, rerolling charges. If they're Dread Hosts, you get 3d6 rerolling. And then before that, you're shooting 12 shots. They're all doing flat 3 damage, hitting on 2s, wounding on 4s, wounding on 3s. You're gonna jack up some Eradicators.
Yeah,
you're gonna kill a few Eradicators with that.
A lot of pain coming down. So actually, I want to try out. Yeah, I want to try out one tomorrow because I play tomorrow versus Necron again, and I want to see how can Achilles work for me.
Yeah,
I want to teleport it also.
They do need some finesse though. That is one of the things I found is that there's certain things that can kill an Achilles. And I mean, they only got, they had 10 wounds, they have 9 now, but they basically get a wound back, obviously, for everything that shoots at them for the neg 1 damage thing.
Yeah.
So comfortably, I think you could say they pan out to having, 11 or 12 wounds, depending on what's shooting at them. But, and obviously with Melta these days, that kind of narrows the margin for how much that is really a buff. But it is a buff, and the fact that he's got a 6-up Feeling of Pain, he's got a 5-up Invul, I think these, I've always found that, the best way to use any kind of deep striking unit, especially with, in this case, is to always have those Caladius Graph Tanks ready to rock and roll as support shooters. And like when you set up your Caladius Graph Tanks, that turn 1, make sure that you're thinking on what do I need to shoot at? What do I need to kill to keep my Achilles alive, because your Achilles are can openers. They'll just go through anything pretty much, especially now. Anything
can he kill a Silent King? That's my question.
I mean, arguably probably better than a lot of units. Strength 14, so he's got a lot of high damage shots. So I mean,
so he hits 2+, 2 ups, and wounds 2 ups because he's toughness 7.
Right.
So that's good. So he only has Invuln and probably saves 3. So he'll kill 2 of his cronies and then get some damage to the Silent King. So you need some support.
That's what I'm saying.
Before. Soften him up with Melta rockets.
Always need to support him. I would, if I ran it similar, like some of the lists I'm looking at, if I was going to fight a Silent King and I was going to try to kill him quick, I would shoot him with something big, something off the Ares gunship or something, knock down those wounds in the shooting phase. But then before that, I would drop a firebomb around him. With the new firebomb dynamics, you can pretty comfortably look at doing D3 mortal wounds to the guy. He's a monstrous creature, so you're getting D3 mortal wounds on him on a 4+. So you fly over him, you drop a firebomb, you maybe do 1 or 2 mortal wounds on him, and then you shoot him and you do another 3 wounds on him. You do 4 or 5 damage. That puts your Achilles then in the ballpark to deep strike in, shoot him, and then charge him and kill him.
So from what I hear, you are keeping RS gunship in your list, right?
Yeah, that is the plan. As much hubbub been about it, I have no reason not to continue to play it. With the outflanking rules, deep striking him is not a bad option. I am struggling a little bit with CP efficiency right now, trying to figure out what's the best way, because I'm still kind of pushing that limit to be starved for CP, especially with an Achilles centric, or maybe not even centric, but a list with Achilles Dreadnoughts deep striking in, that's another 3 CP. So,
because you don't have any allied in your list currently, right? You don't have any allies.
No allies, no.
No, yeah. So you only have fast attacks and heavy support. Yeah,
Well,
and RS, of course, flyer and troops. Yeah. So you have a space for one or even except of course for 4 points, but you have slots for Achilles Dreadnought.
I do, yeah. So I've been list crafting a little bit. I mean, I do have some lists without an Ares gunship in it. But I don't see it as a necessity. Like I'm not like going, oh yes, I'm trading my Achilles now for Achilles Dreadnoughts. Like that has occurred to me because they do have comparable output. The Achilles do a lot of damage, and the thing about it is they are really only going to do that damage consistently if you deep strike them. Because otherwise, unlike the bikes, they can get kited a little bit. And depending on the matchups and stuff, they have the potential to get shot off the board as well. If your enemy has a lot of anti-tank stuff and he's going, you're going to transhuman or whatever, he's already got the neg 1 damage. I suppose you could do Emperor's Auspice on an Achilles Dreadnought and, Grim Responsibility. But, it makes it a lot easier for your opponent to pop that and then shoot the other one, and then you don't get any of those buffs and you kind of waste the CP. It does present a certain degree of difficulty. I'm probably going to end up playing one of them, honestly, and seeing how it goes. Keep maybe, dropping a couple of Praetors perhaps to take an Achilles, and then just taking 1 unit of Virtus Praetors rather than 2, and then kind of keeping most of the list the same. For the most part, I am probably going to go include a Palace Grab as well, because the Palace Grab dropped down to 95 points, which I think is appropriate.
Yeah, it is tempting to use the Palace as well, right?
What's that?
It is tempting to use that model. This now it's 10 points cheaper, and it's not bad. Pretty versatile. Yeah.
It is versatile. It's really good at move blocking. It's good enough at shooting that it's an issue. If you leave it alone, it can do some significant damage and some consistent damage. Strength 7, neg 4, flat 3 damage, 2 shots, rerolling wounds on vehicles. A lot of light vehicles will take 6 consistent damage a turn to a Palace Grab attack. So things like Orc vehicles or Admech, like a lot of those vehicles, can take some very consistent damage from the Palace, so they can't just ignore it. There's not a unit of intercessors or something, or infiltrators, where it's like strength 4 plink. Like it can do 6 damage pretty consistently a turn, against a vehicle without an invul, and that's toughness 7 or toughness 6. It can really do some damage there, much more consistently than a salvo launcher, I would say, even, because it's just flat 3 damage. So it's pretty flat, consistent 6 damage for the most part. I remember picking up. I remember scooting them on the flank and taking out Imperial Guard basilisks a lot with Palace Grab. I would set 3 Palace Grab or 2 Palace Grab on one flank and hide them. And you might take some pot shots at them, or shoot a basilisk at them, kind of ignore them, but they don't degrade. So then they would just J-hook around the cover real hard and get a good angle, and then just do 12 damage on a basilisk. Hitting on 2s, rerolling. There's a captain, and then wounding on 3s, rerolling.
Yeah, especially that they are very fast. It's 16 inches movement.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Fast. Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to that dreaded Necron matchup.
Yeah.
What I encountered is basically various lists, but basically the biggest issue of the list was a combination of the Silent King and 2 or 3 big blobs of Necron warriors that have 5-up invulnerable from the character that is going with them, and also they get 5-up protocol, getting up protocol,
Yep.
it's called, with rerolling once, which is I made a calculation with our forces with hitting on 2-up with rerolls from Shield Captain. We need like between 60 and 80 shots to put down the whole unit, which is enormous amount of shots.
It is. It's pretty untenable, even in a 3 Caladius. You take 3 Caladius with the Iliastus up top. Like, the thing about it, and like I said, this is the first time I played it, so the guy that I played against is pretty smart, 40K. So I don't think he did it wrong. But my understanding of the rule is that you get to reanimate between every unit targeting it. So I shoot with 1 Caladius tank. Once all the shooting from the Caladius tank is done, he takes his reanimate rolls.
Yes, that is my understanding as well.
Yeah, I think he did it right, but it's definitely a change from the old way, and it does make it much harder than
it does.
And
I think the right and very irritating thing they can do is that when they die, they are removed, kind of, and they are placed again when they reanimate. So they can reanimate in coherency, but in different spot. So that might move them. You might by shooting them, you can move them, so to say, kind of change their. That's really annoying how that works out.
So yes, so that could be. I mean, when you're shooting at 20 warriors, that could be a significant movement that they get.
Yeah, you can extend their threat range. So if you really don't want to, you want to commit, right? You want to commit, so you don't shoot like you don't kill 5 and 5 reanimate and then leave that unit, because you only make them move so to say, change the location how they want. And they can, with stratagem, they can return D3 of them, or even 2D3, I think. So that's really annoying, because it's a lot of shots to kill 5 or even 5 of them, and then they can return.
Absolutely.
So the things I was considering in this matchup was because the first game I played, I killed the Silent King. I concentrated on it and removed him from the game in turn 2, which left 2 massive blobs of Necron warriors that took my objectives, and I lost on scenario. Although I was killing them, and they weren't killing me fast enough, because without support of Silent King, they don't get any rerolls, so they are not so effective. The issue.
I think I was talking about the Nightbringer when I was talking about the Achilles.
Yeah.
Nightbringer is not the same as the.
No. Nightbringer. I haven't played versus Nightbringer. I'm a bit afraid of him as well. But the Silent King.
Does he also have a min damage?
Silent King is a very good in melee. He's got those 2 supporting
pylons or whatever.
Pylons, yeah, exactly. That can shoot very well, and he himself is very killy in melee. So the first game was I killed the Silent King, so the Necrons did not have any support, no rerolls, etc. But it left me with a huge amount of Necron warriors and the rest, because you have to concentrate a lot of firepower to get him down, right? He's got 26 wounds altogether for up inf. So that was the first game. The second game, I did otherwise. I concentrated on killing the Necron warriors, and left Silent King kind of unattended, I would say. I just killed 1 pylon, and that was it. And that wasn't good enough either, because while I killed a lot of Necron warriors, I think like one unit had 6, the other one had like maybe 7 or 8. The Silent King finally managed to get to my units and kill them in melee, like in a split second. So I tried both approaches, and that kind of brings me back to the drawing board, because now I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I lost both games on scenario because the tactic of my opponent was to get the huge blob of warriors on my objectives, and then as many things surround my forces with the warriors, and fight with them in melee, so I could not get out, or if I get out, then I fall back and I don't shoot, and he's OBSEC and I'm OBSEC, so he's actually scoring my objectives, because there are many more of them than there are of me. So
I think it's really just a matter of leveraging your hammer units and keeping a good fire priority rhythm.
Yeah.
When I played them, we kind of talked about this, but I had a splitting migraine, so
yeah,
it was kind of a good and a bad thing, because on the one hand, like I remember the game very vividly because it was all incredibly painful for me. It was like every decision I made was like, lancing pain behind my eyes, and it was miserable. But on the bright side, I do remember it very, very clearly, and that was what I, as I was kind of learning the new rules for the Necrons and playing it.
I'm sorry, was that Saturday on Sunday? That tournament? Saturday. That must have been worldwide, because I had really huge headache on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know. I get a rare migraine. Like, it doesn't happen to me very often, but when I get one, it's pretty rough. And
yeah, me neither. I mean, okay, but sorry for the digression.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Maybe it was a. I don't think it was worldwide, because I was.
No, I'm just joking. Maybe that was Custodes players commune or something.
Maybe we were both having a headache over the Necrons before.
Yeah, probably.
So this guy, I mean, he's a good player that I played. He's very top notch. He doesn't get out much as far as on the tournament circuit, but he's usually top seed when he plays locally. So he was a really good player anyways to begin with. He knows the rules very well. And so, those kind of gave him, gave him a good spot to give me a run for my money there. And then, so basically we it kind of opened pretty normal to what I usually play. I try to play a little bit KG with my tanks, especially forward deploying my Verse Praetors to kind of position them to really kind of get in the mix early on. He had a Doomskith. He had a Canoptics, Doomwalker, whatever it's called. The big floaty dude with the big gun, one of the newer models. He had a bunch of warriors, but he had like 10-man units. So he had like 3 or 4 10-man units, and then he had a unit of Immortals, and then he had a big unit of destroyers with one of the new heavy destroyer guys, and then he had a big unit of Scorptech destroyers with a Scorptech destroyer lord, and then he had one of the, I think the Triarch things is what they're called, one of the spider-looking dudes. That's kind of like a medium vehicle that's got some Melta kind of stuff on it. So he had a really, really wide mix. He had a very balanced list in that regard. It wasn't really super combat or super shooty, but it was very balanced, and he used it very methodically. A lot of good objective holding units, but they weren't just huge blocks either. Like some people are playing, 20-man blocks. So it was a very balanced list, and I think, so starting out, I immediately targeted the destroyers because I knew those guys would wreck my day. and I kind of underestimated the Doom Stalker. I want to say that's what it's called.
That thing with D6 shots with
yeah, it's D6 damage. Yeah, I underestimated that guy. 12 is like strength 12 or something. Strength 10, strength 12, and then he had a bunch of pylons too. These pylons that were like fortifications that like gave aura buffs, you know, kind of thing, which were really but they had some kind of shooting as well. That was just like flat 3 damage. So we had those kind of scattered through his force, and like from a competitive player's perspective, I look at it and go, okay, target priority for balanced lists like that are really, really easy to conduct. So, you know, the destroyers with target A, then it was basically, I kind of miffed on the Doomstalker. So the next thing was the Doom Skiff that I targeted, but then it would have been the Doomstalker, and it was actually. And then from there, his shooting is pretty reserved. It's not nominal, but it's reserved to his infantry. So it's a lot of low strength, relative AP, lots of volume, you know, and so, but all infantry. So I knew that if I could string them out, spread them out, you know, not, you know, mitigate that kind of mass shooting effect and just kind of pick off his units marginally one at a time, I could really focus fire and effectively do that. And then charge the units with my Virtus Praetors that I needed to take off objectives and stuff. You know, it would have been a pretty set match for me if I didn't have the worst migraine that I've had this year. And so it was a really kind of back and forth there in the beginning turns. And then beginning of turn 2, I was just kind of like, my brain was exploding, and I kind of made the decision to throw the game, basically. And so I basically ended up feeding his Scorptech destroyers, my bikes, my big unit of bikes, and my bike captain. Ares gunship just took it hard on the nose first turn. I mean, he took a lot of damage first turn, so I kind of sent him on kind of a suicide run. You know, my deep strikers came in, killed the Doomstalker, cleared an objective, but then they were basically sacrificed as well to the Scorptech destroyers after they made pretty quick work of the bikes. So, you know, it was like, and then we basically talked it out. I think after turn 3 or turn 4. So, you know, if I would have played smart and not fed him my bikes, I think I would have been fine. I think I would have came out with a win. But like I said, I was really, really intent on getting out of the game early. So the only way that was going to happen is if I kind of played it, gave him some easy kills. Not something I like to do, but I was just kind of like, I didn't want to just concede either, you know. So I kind of split the difference and just kind of made some really, really bad moves.
Yeah,
kind of finished it out. But, it was very interesting to play. And, you know,
learning experience for sure. Anyway, seeing what they can do. So what I'm thinking is what we said at the beginning, what you like to do. I know to put some forces behind the enemy lines, kind of to score behind the enemy lines as well. But because Necrons, at least the player I'm playing against, but what I saw from the battle reports is it's generally like this, that the Necrons are pushing forward. They want to be forward. They want to swarm your tanks with the Necron warriors. They want to, you know, engage because it doesn't cost them anything. It's a worse nightmare. It's even worse than it used to be with Iron Hands, because they revive after each salvo and after each fight. So they just, you know, coming back very fast. So and they don't care about multi-damage weapons. They just revive from 5 up, while the old Feel No Pain was working for each damage. So so they are more resilient in that respect. So what I was thinking is to drop some forces of mine behind him to take his objectives, because while he's pushing those 2 or 3 blobs into me, this means his back is vulnerable. What's the word? Vulnerable.
Vulnerable.
Vulnerable. Yes. Sorry.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah, put the dreadnought, put maybe a unit or two behind him, and make him choose. So now you want to go back and defend it, or you take my objectives and I will take your objectives. Maybe this tactic will work out. And then also, what you said, you lost your bikes very fast in this game. This is what I kind of, because they don't have a very heavy shooting versus tanks or toughness 7-8 models, but kind of they can manage to take down the bikes if they concentrate fire. And I was overestimating survivability of the bikes in both games, and I was hoping that they will kind of survive with the buffs I can give them with wounded responsibility, or maybe no rerolls, Emperor's Hospice. But in both games they died pretty fast, and I was feeling that loss there, because when I lose the bikes, I don't have mobility, and I don't have a hard punch.
So this is a hard punch, and even with 5 ups, it can be really tough to sink a full unit of bikes charging even a 20-man unit of Necron warriors. I mean, you're really strong in degrading that unit. I mean, you can comparably wipe that unit out with only getting back whatever you revive. So if you whittle a unit down a little bit, down to 15 or 12, a big 5-man unit of bikes can comfortably, I think, take out the rest of that unit, including with their shooting. So yes, I mean the bikes. The thing about Custodes is they are more fragile than we like to think sometimes. Especially when you roll those handfuls of 1s or 2s. If they
exactly, that's pretty swing.
A lot of neg 1, a lot of neg 2 stuff. So on their infantry, so it really does eat up quick to that 4-up invul. When you have warriors packing those strength 5 neg 2 shots and getting 20 of them or 40 of them, like that can chew up some predators pretty quick. So that's something to watch out for and try to figure out. But
for sure, from now on, I will try to use terrain, to get predators to contribute, to shoot something, so they don't sit doing nothing, but to get angles that I cannot be shot back by too many things, because of course we can survive some shots, but if they can concentrate fire, then we can get into trouble. And that army-wide 4-up invuln is such an incredible thing, but it on occasions has goaded me into thinking that I'm invincible, or my forces are invincible, and that cost me a unit or two.
It's not as good as a lot of people think.
Yeah.
Especially when it's your whole army. It works, a little bit better in armies like Knights or Sisters, because they have either everything has to go into the Knight, and they're toughness 8, 24 wounds. So a lot of that kind of they lose. Those clink shots can, it's okay if he has a 4-up save, because you're only neg 1 or neg 2 or neg 0 anyway. So it's like it doesn't matter. It's only really matters the big stuff. But the Custodes are kind of like right in that midsection where you shoot 50 bolter shots at a unit of Praetors. Like, you can kill a couple of Praetors and get 200 points. With that kind of volume of fire.
Yeah.
If you're at neg 1, or if I roll bad, that can happen fairly consistently. Or like I said, Sisters of, is different than Sisters of Battle, because, the Adeptus Custodes, because they are toughness 3 and they have 1 wound, and so with a 4-up save, it's like, all that high volume, high AP, high damage stuff loses its efficiency when you're shooting at a unit of 10 Sisters that are ignoring neg 1 and neg 2 and are all 1 wound models, and so you lose some efficiency there on that 4-up invul of like, do I really want to shoot my last cannon at this 10 unit, this 10 lady unit of Sisters because she's gonna get a 4-up invul. What else am I gonna shoot it at? But when you're like looking at a unit of Virtus Praetors, it's like, yes, I will shoot my last cannon at that.
Yeah.
Because
exactly.
That's 95 points right there.
Exactly.
That I could possibly bag. So they're kind of in. It's not a. It's kind of an even middle that you're kind of at like, okay, it's good all around, but it's almost too balanced. So a lot of efficiencies don't work as well. Just because you get a 4-up invul, you have 4 wounds, but you're kind of like right there where still you're getting shot up by everything. Still you're taking damage from everything. You're taking damage a little bit less than everyone else, but still, your 95 point model, you're almost as much as it's a lot of vehicles are 95, 100 points, so.
Yeah, exactly. Palace, for example.
Yeah. So, I mean, it is what it is. I still like the Virtus Praetors. I don't think they're overcosted. I think you get a lot for a Virtus Praetor. Same with the bike captains. I think they're the best unit that the Custodes have at their disposal at this time. Overall, obviously they're not as good at some things as others. So, like for the particular issue of taking out Necron hordes, I would definitely say the Alaris bomb is a better fit for that.
Or maybe the Forge or Aquilon Custodians, because
or the Aquilons,
they got cheaper. They got Lastrum bolters that are a bit better suitable to shooting because they have strength 5, which makes our wounding on 3, exactly. So this is
my one caveat, or a couple of caveats with that. I mean, it wouldn't be bad against them, but you can only take 6 of them in a unit, so that does limit the firepower a little bit. Being able to take a big 10-man unit of Valaris is I think would be if you were to play into a matchup, that's probably what I would do. If I was going to play Necrons and I could tool a list, I would probably do that. I'd take 10 Alaris. Because, Necrons are a little bit slower, so you're going to be playing, you can play centerboard and not have to really worry about chasing anything down with that big unit. You're going to get a whole lot more. I mean, you're going to get comparable shots. You're going to get more shots with a 10-man unit, I think, including their ballistic grenade launchers, than you would with the 6-man unit of Aquilons. And then the Aquilons, obviously now they're flat 2 damage with their power fist. They're going to lose a lot of efficiency with that because you're going to fight a lot of 1-wound models. So the D3 on the axe doesn't really matter. You're still doing 1 damage. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're getting the same amount of attacks, but the other thing about the Alaris is you can target those characters that are giving that 5-up invul. You can snipe those characters. The Aquilons can't do that. So that would be the bigger ticket item for me, other than those other things. I think those other factors are fairly nominal. But the fact that you can go, that's the character, giving them all the 5-up invul reroll ones. Okay, I'm going to shoot that character. Now, obviously, if it's the Silent King, Alaris shooting is probably not the best way to go against that. But there's an argument, even that though, to be made for Victor of the Blood games. You're auto wounding on 6s to hit. You're doing a lot of flat 2 damage stuff. That -1, so he's getting a 3-up or a 4-up save. Shooting 40 shots at him. You could possibly do some decent damage with that. 40 shots, you're looking at about, what is that? About 7 6s that you would roll on average that are auto wounds, and then you're wounding on, he's probably toughness 7, right?
Yeah, that's so interesting. 10-man unit of Alaris Custodian. That's interesting.
I would probably do that because he doesn't have a lot of blast. Necrons, as far as the ones I played, didn't have a lot of blast. Except maybe that Doomstalker, which should be able to be taken out pretty quick before the Alaris even come in, depending on what else you have on your list. So I would, if I was if I knew I was going to fight big blobs like that, I would absolutely choose Alaris. I'd probably throw a Vexilla in there just to get an extra 10 attacks, from that unit. And then I would just take the blobs out one by one as it pertains to whatever, 2 objectives you can get close to. I mean, even if you only kill 2 blobs of 40 warriors each, you're in pretty good shape at that point. And then if you kill the Silent King included, you're in pretty good shape at that point.
Yeah, but aren't you then overtaxed to that one single matchup?
I mean, yes. The reason why I don't play the Alaris Blob is because I don't think it's the most efficient tournament list to take on all comers, but but marginally so. I mean, the 10-man Alaris Blob is I think it's a strong competitive play. It's got weaknesses that I think the Virtus Praetors mitigate better overall, point for point. But I think the big Alaris Blob does have a lot of play against a lot of different armies, a lot of different lists. There's a lot.
This is 650 point unit, even if you take spears instead of axes.
It's a 700 point unit. Yes, it is.
Yes.
You take axes. It's a 700 point unit. I think the armies that it would struggle most against would be, all vehicle armies, Eldar, especially Eldar all vehicle armies. They'd probably struggle some against Harlequins, because they're so fast and they can just sort of swarm around them, kind of avoid them. I think those would be probably your hardest matchups. But things like Knights, that wouldn't be a bad matchup to go against. Most Knight players have to bunch up at least 2 Knights into one quarter, and you deep strike them in, and you blast away with Victor the Blood or what is it? Is it Victors of the Blood Games?
Veterans of the Blood Games. Yeah.
Veterans of the Blood Games. And like I said, I wouldn't send them alone. I would still keep the backbone of the Caladius tanks in the backfield, all providing their fire support, so I can take out units that are getting in the way as screeners, or I can winnow away units that are going to cause problems for the Alaris, and then you drop that Alaris, midfield or backfield, and start really hitting after his characters and his power units. There's a lot of armies that would be scrambling at that point.
And they are incredible for buffing, right? For that, killing that single unit, you can put
right,
all of the buffs on them.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, you drop them in next to Scorp Tech destroyers. They would just wreck if they got that charge off. There's they have Tanglefoot. You can throw a Calexis with them, which is what I would do. I would have a Calexis assassin with them, so you can comfortably set them up next to anything pretty much, minus if he's got a Judicar or something, and then be always fighting first. So like that Necron matchup that I fought, I would have like a 10-man unit of Alaris. I would just drop him right next to the Scorp Deck.
Explain me why Calexis Assassin.
So the Calexis Assassin has a stratagem. I want to say it is 2. I know it's 2 CP. I can't remember the name of the stratagem.
Okay, no worries.
But it's based. I wonder if I can. Let's see if I can navigate away from this. Can you hear me still?
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and look this up real quick, so I don't butcher anything too much. Whoops. Got the wrong codex there. So the Calexis has a 2 CP stratagem that's essentially a fight last. With some caveats. It's not quite as good. I'm looking for the wording here as soon as I find the.
So the importance would be how far the enemy should be from the Calexis, or does the Calexis needs to be in melee with it?
It's a 3-inch. It's like a 3-inch aura that he gets.
Okay. So if you put it in front of, or not before, but somewhere in the front row of the Alaros, then he should be always able to heroic intervention, at least to be in range.
I mean, yes, you basically put him in the front rank or next to the front rank of the Alaris, and you can use this 2 CP stratagem. It's actually, I mean, let's see here. In some situations, I mean, it's better than a Judicar because a Judicar just chooses one. It's called Soul Horror. Soul Horror collects this stratagem. It's a Colexis-specific stratagem. It says, use this stratagem at the start of the fight phase. Select one Colexis assassin model from your army. Enemy units within 3 inches of that model cannot be chosen to fight with this phase until after all other units have done so, even if they charged. So if one of those units has an ability that allows them to fight first in this phase, they instead fight in this phase as if they do not have that ability. So like in the case of, if you're fighting a Space Marine army with a Judicar, and you drop this unit and you do Soul Horror, the Judicar can still say to your Alaris, you fight last. If you don't get the charge off, then you go in the order of operations. So then, it would just kind of cancel it out. Because if you got charged by a bunch of Blade Guard, then, it would fight in charge order and so on. And you would fight and so on and so forth. It kind of revert back to that natural order. But that's the thing about the Alaris, is that they can target Judicars. You can drop that unit and go, okay, my Alaris are going to shoot most of their shots into your Judicar who doesn't get an invul save, against my Neg 3 ballistic grenade launchers. So, I mean, 10 Alaris should be able to kill one Judicar, and now your Colexis assassin is sitting there going, I'm ready for my Soul Horror move. Even if you don't get that charge off from the deep strike and you get charged in your opponent's turn, then he just does Soul Horror, and boom, your Alaris are fighting first now. And, they all have 5 attacks because you have, you took a Vexilla and sent the Vexilla in with them, and it's a really tough move to counter, so that breaks a lot of Marine meta, that does break a lot of the sort of the current Marine meta, that combination.
And versus big blobs, you get 70 shots from them, right? Not counting in the charge that they will make or will try to make.
Yes. So if you were shooting at a unit of 20 guys, you would max those ballistics would get 3 shots each, so they'd all be getting, and then you double shoot, so they all get 7 shots each.
Yeah.
Coming in with that 1 CP move, that's gonna wreck. That's gonna chew through a lot of Necron warriors. Even with
I think it's close to wiping a unit.
I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, even with a 5 up. I mean, it's gonna do a lot of damage. And then, the charge wouldn't be hard to get, if you have Dreadhost, and then you put you put an Achilles Dreadnought in there with support as a support unit.
Yeah.
And then it becomes really nasty. That combination can get really, really tough.
And if you really need that afterwards, you can split the 10-man unit into 2 5s and then spread out all over the board.
Well, I don't think you can do 2 5-men. I think you have to do they all count as individual 1 unit.
Really? It's every man for himself then?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that you do on this alliance.
Really, the alliance is okay. I was under the impression you can do.
No, you would have to. So yes. So like at a certain point in the game, where it's like I need to pick up objectives, or I want to send this unit in different directions, or you've kind of already done the alpha strike, and you're like, I don't need to use these other stratagems on them anymore. That can be really useful because then they have to target them individually one at a time.
This will mess up their efficiency, right?
It really messes up their efficiency, yes. And you can go after so many more units. So, once you've kind of done that hammer blow, they can all just kind of go hunting then from that. That's kind of the point of Unleashed Alliance is like you do the hammer blow, you kind of scatter the enemy army, and then you just send them all off to just chase down anything left. And then whatever else you have in the army, you can just comfortably pick up all the objectives then from that point on.
I will tell you. This idea is so crazy that I will try it tomorrow in my Necron game, and I will tell you how it went.
That sounds great. I would love to hear about that.
I'm desperate enough after having my ass kicked twice in a row that I can try a large Alarus bomb. I'm thinking about the point efficiency if I don't want to use spears, because that's 50 points less, and then in case I have to kill something bigger than spend the CP to have +1 to wound on spears. Not sure if that's worth, or would you say the axes are the way to go?
Yeah, I mean, if you have models for both, I think if you were planning on fighting mostly infantry, you can still spend that 1 CP and wound on 2s. You're going to be wounded on 3s. You can spend 1 CP to get +1 to wound with the Guardian Spears to wound on 2s. So, yeah, 1 CP use, could argue better than a 50 point. But on the flip side, you could say, well, that's 1 Custodian Guard that you're getting on top of that.
Yeah.
And if they do run up against the Silent King, it would be nice, to be wounding on 3's base without having to spend any CP.
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's really up to you. I mean, it wouldn't be a bad trade-off in that particular matchup, just because you're not necessarily fighting a bunch of toughness 8 stuff where that would become a big factor. It is really just kind of horde clearing. So yeah, you might say, spears might be the way to go with that. Save some points, pick up something else, maybe make some room for an Achilles then, or whatever you do with that 50 points.
Oh, I will take a look how the list would have to look and what I have to remove from the list, because 650 plus almost 500 in 5 bikes, it's 60% of the list already. So
yeah, it does. It is a bit of a hike. I would, if I were you, I would just, I guess if I was going to do it, I would do 3 Caladius tanks. I would do, let's see here. I would either do 2. I would probably do 2 and 2. So, how would I do that? Maybe 2 Caladius tanks. You have an Ares gunship?
Yeah, I do.
You do? Okay. I mean, the Ares gunship wouldn't be a bad choice either with that list. I mean, you don't get so much efficiency with the fire bombs anymore, but that's kind of nominal at this point. You said he doesn't have any vehicles?
Well, he usually he changes the list a bit in between, but the main vehicle is the Silent King. Right. He had those spidery dreadnoughts once, and I think that was it. Mostly the Silent King is the one thing that I had to kill with vehicle killing.
Yeah, I mean, you might be better off with just doing like 2 or 3 Caladius tanks, an Achilles dreadnought with the Alaris bomb, a Calexis, and then whatever else you want to do from there.
Yeah, by captain, and probably I'm reaching the end with a minimal troop, and that's all the points probably. But anyway, Ryan, we are closing to an end for today. But one thing I noticed watching your game, that you used the winner of the Blood Games on your bike captain. Do you use it often, or was it just one?
No, it was kind of a I don't know if consolation is the right word, but I haven't played because I've been part of the Steel City Legion Club for a long time, so this was kind of felt like a homecoming tournament for me. Of just like playing tournaments all over the country, so this is the first local tournament I played for a while. That's been local, and so it was kind of wearing a laurel of the fact that I attained the top spot in the club by the rankings and stuff. So I thought it was kind of appropriate to play with Victor of the Blood Games for at least one tournament. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of thematic, I guess. But if I'm going to play it, if I'm going to wear that laurel, I might as well do it at sort of this homecoming kind of tournament. Yeah. So that was really honestly the thinking behind it.
Okay. But was it useful? Was it worth the 2 CPs, or how do you feel afterwards? Because you made a couple of saves I think at least 2 saves you made with that. So
it did come into play big time in that second game.
Because that allows you to reroll 2 failed save rolls, right? One from the victor and one from CP.
Yes, so can be definitely tanky. I'm not set on it yet, though. I'm not 100% set on it. But who knows? I might change my mind. We'll see what happens, though.
Yeah. Okay, Ryan. I wish you good hunting in the coming future. I don't know if you have any tournaments coming up in your area, because it seems
my schedule is stacked right now. I pretty much have tournaments every weekend for the rest of the year.
So let's hope that there will be no lockdowns in your area, because my area is probably getting locked down within 2-3 weeks. Seems like, but we'll see. There's still internet and tabletop simulator. If I cannot play with models, then I can play online then.
Yep.
Okay, so I wouldn't make plans for what we will talk in 2 weeks, but we'll think of something interesting for sure.
That sounds good. Good, Marcin.